So you want to be a New York Times best-selling author, or maybe break the Wall Street Journal or USA Today list. So what exactly does it take? Is it even possible for a self-published author? And most of all, how much is it going to cost? If this is what you're wondering about, this video is going to be just right for you. I'm going to tell you the stuff that nobody else tells you, including the real numbers and all of that. Make sure you stick until the end, because I'm going to share why aiming for this dream might not be the golden ticket we've all been led to believe. With that being said, let's get going. Welcome everyone, Brian from Fiction Marketing Academy here, where we talk about book marketing 100% for fiction authors. So today we're talking about becoming a New York Times best-selling author. First though, let's be clear on what it means to be on this kind of top of the pops, if you will. So the New York Times, but also USA Today and the Wall Street Journal are pretty much more than just newspapers. They are institutions that have the power to sort of catapult your books into the spotlight, making them super famous. So landing a spot on their bestseller list is seen as a kind of hallmark of success, prestige, and recognition, specifically for fiction authors. So how do you exactly get on that list? You want to know how many books you need to sell? Not so fast, I'm afraid. Now, you'd think that in order to be on the list of the best-selling books, you would need to sell lots of books, right? A bit like a musician who goes, I don't know, platinum after they manage to sell so-and-so million albums. But it doesn't actually work like that for the New York Times bestseller list, which means that sales alone do not guarantee you will get a spot. And the New York Times list is the one who has the shadiest criteria. Yeah, quite accurately shady. Now, point number one, nobody really knows where exactly they get their data from. So normally you would take all the biggest retailers online and offline and you'd add up the numbers. But the New York Times does not disclose where they collect the data. I know you're looking for real numbers, and like I said, it's not exact science. We estimate that to make it on the list, a book needs to achieve a minimum of 5,000 sales in a single week. And they say that the list relies on select bookstores' sales data, but the problem, again, is that the stores they get the data from are actually confidential. And I'm not making this up, it actually says on their website, as you can see. Another thing that to us is just plain crazy is that there are specific categories that they say are not even tracked. And among them, here, ebooks available exclusively from a single vendor, which simply means if you are exclusive to Amazon, you pretty much have no chance. And you know what the cherry on top of the cake is for us indies? It's that in order to be eligible, a book needs to have an ISBN. Okay, so we've established that it's not easy, for lack of a better word, to become a New York Times bestseller, especially if you are an indie. So what other options are there for you? Well, there's not much to say about the Wall Street Journal either. And the reason for that is because the Wall Street Journal list no longer exists. It was stopped in November 2023, and at the time of recording this, it's still gone. It's not back yet. Now, this actually, it's very interesting because even the USA Today list, which we're going to talk about in just a sec, went on a hiatus and then came back after a few months. But nobody really knows the reasons behind this. But one thing people speculate a lot about is that maybe these lists aren't so reliable after all, and that they can quite easily be gamed. I'm not sure about this, so I'll let you be the judge of that. And another option is, of course, the USA Today list. Now, things are a little bit easier if you want to go for this bestseller list. Now, their list ranks the top 150 books in the US across all genres, including fiction, non-fiction, and even children's books. Once again, the volume of sales required here isn't super easy to reach. And similar to what we were talking about with the New York Times, we're estimating about 5,000 to 6,000 books in a 1-week period. Now, the key here is the fact that their rankings are based on the sales data that they collect from various outlets like bookstore chains, independent bookstore, mass merchandisers, and most of all, online retailers. And that last word is key for us indies. Online online retailers such as Amazon, of course, but also iBooks, Kobo, and the like. So the secret sauce here seems to be the volume, of course, but volume spread out on more than one platform. Now, I'm sure you've seen quite a few indies get on this list, and there's a specific reason for that. Many self-published authors do this. They join forces and create an anthology, which is a collection of shorter material like short stories, novellas, and things like that. And when all these authors combine their audiences, it is very, very likely that they will achieve a huge volume of sales in a short time, maybe also using pre-orders. And that's exactly what the USA Today list wants. And it's a fairly simple way of hitting the list. Simple, but still not exactly easy. Ultimately, this list is the most within reach, we think, for indies. Will you need a super good launch? Yes. And if you do, are there gatekeepers? Not so much. So definitely better than the New York Times list. Okay, all of that being said, let's talk some real numbers. Now, because of the scale you will need in order to hit these lists, the cost of launching a bestseller campaign can run into low four, maybe even five figures. And the crazy thing is that you are not guaranteed any returns. And while being a bestseller does increase visibility, the financial payoff isn't always as lucrative as one might think. By the way, this is the reason why so many self-published authors got in these lists by participating in the anthologies that we spoke about just a while ago. So if you think that a self-published author receives from Amazon about $2 to $3 per sale, which usually is even less during launches, you can easily understand that the initial investment might take years to recoup. So this brings us to an important question. What is the true value of being a best-selling author on these lists? Now, for some, it's validation and the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, but for others, it's a marketing tool that opens doors to things like speaking engagements, book deals, and more. Yet for fiction authors, the hardest part is always building a readership of dedicated fans. And bestseller lists are not very useful for that, which leads us to the final twist. Given the immense effort, cost, and uncertainty of becoming a New York Times, USA Today, or Wall Street Journal bestseller, is it really worth it? Well, our take is this. Even though getting that badge is, undoubtedly impressive, it might just be a bit of an empty badge of honor. So before you set your heart on hitting those lists, consider what truly matters to you as an author. Is it the prestige or is it the royalties? Because if it's recognition, then we're all rooting for you. Yes, go for it, by all means. But if you want to be a novelist for a living, then we can assure you 100% that those 4 or 5 figures are best spent in other ways. So that's it for this one, guys. Let us know in the comments if you've gotten one of those badges, and most of all, if it has been useful in your career. So with that being said, I'll talk to you soon. Ciao for now.